Mr. Robinson, and so is Mr. McLean. And our esteemed controller, Mr. Glazer, is also here. So, first thing we're gonna do is, we have a couple of things on the agenda, but we also have, just wanna say that we have a capital funds prepared, we're gonna hold that for the next meeting that we hold, just because of time, and there's another meeting coming up with the, zoning, board coming over. So, we're gonna talk about, the pension bond refunding, that will be the December 18, no, December, no. You know, what year is that?
This is yes, Mr. Greedy, this is a refunding of the 2004 pension
2004,
obligation.
2004, that's what it was. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will do, since our time is very short, I will not talk in detail, but I will just remind you all in September, when we had brought forward the parameters resolution to you to approve up to 4 possible bond issuances, we were only going to go ahead and do any of the issuances if it was fiscally in the best interest of the city to go ahead and do it. And at the time, in September, when we had proposed refinancing the 2004 pension obligation bonds, we had an anticipation at that point we could save $1 million in debt service payments immediately. The interest rate environment weakened considerably in October and made it not cost effective for us to go forward, but the winds had changed back in the other direction, and we are ready to go ahead and make this move at this point with a savings of close to $800,000. The intention being that the savings that we would make on the debt service from this, we would immediately plow into the repayment of the solid waste loan as is scheduled for this year, so that instead of delaying it, we would make the payment on time. And all of this falls within the parameters of what was in the September resolution, and while we can go ahead with this, I think it is important for us to have the discussion with you so that you're aware of it and just essentially get your comfort with it before we proceed. So without further ado, Tom Beckett from NW Financial will give you a brief summary.
Okay, nice to see you again, and Happy New Year. I know it's about 2 months late, but
Thank you very much, Mr. Becker.
as Brent said, we had anticipated refunding the 2004 bonds in September. The interest rates went away from us, and because it doesn't make any sense to refund something that doesn't save you enough money, we opted to pull that out of the 2018 financing. Markets have rallied this year, meaning rates have come down significantly to the point where we could save about $800,000 if we issued this today. Fortunately, in September, you passed a parameters resolution, which allows us which puts in place all the mechanisms to do this fairly quickly to take advantage of the market. That's why you do a parameters resolution, because it gives you entree to the markets on an expedited basis. If you look at page 2, this is a quick summary of what the financing will do. It's about $2.175 million of outstanding 04 bonds mature in 2034. As we said, we think today we would be able to reach about $800,000 of present value savings, 6.6% of the outstanding 2004, so that's an efficient refunding. We are going to schedule, as Brent mentioned, the cash flow savings in fiscal 2019, which frees up roughly $800,000 in your budget for other purposes. This is going to be issued under the 2018 parameters ordinance. We took this component out of the 18 financing. We're going to put it back in because it was authorized at that time. And again, this represents fairly typical and careful management of the city's outstanding debt. If we go to page 4, that shows you the sources and uses of financing. The biggest use of financing is $12.5 million to pay principal and accrued interest to the date of redemption of the 2004 bonds, plus cost of issuance and bond insurance. The next page shows you the outstanding principal amortization and interest rates on the 04 bonds. As you can see, they're about an interest rate of between 5.20 and between 4.87 and 5.25. probably averaging about 5.21, 22. Next page shows you our projected rates for a new bond issue. Actually, it doesn't. It shows you debt service on the 04s, which runs to $1.1 million from 2019 through 2034. That's the existing maturity of those bonds. As you'll see in a minute, we do not extending any maturities past their existing maturity date. Page 7 is the schedule for the projected schedule for new financing. Interest rates are ranging between 3.1% and 4.31%, based on markets as of about now. As you can see, we kept the debt service from 2020 to 2034 almost identical, and loaded most of the refunding savings into 2019. So that's where the benefit to the city comes in 2019. And that's shown by comparing the old and the new debt service on page 8. Any questions on the financial analysis?
Just a quick question. So going back to page 2. So you have $12,175,000. But then on page 4, it's $12,685,000. And then at the end of the year, somehow there's an extra 600, an extra 500,000 kind of thing.
There is, and if you look at page 4, it will show you how you get between 12,000,001 and 12,000,006. First off, you'll pay approximately $350,000 of interest accrued on the old bonds. You have to pay the interest that accrues to the day you redeem them. That's the bulk of it. And then there's about $200,000 of financing costs, cost of issuance, which are what pays me and bond counsel, and then the underwriter's discount, which pays for the underwriting. And then the insurance, which will either be, that $48,000 will either be there or not be there. If it's there, it will save you more money than over time and lower interest rate than it costs up front. So we have to run a fairly detailed analysis when we price the bonds to justify that particular line item.
So so page 9 will have the total cost of how much it costs us to do the financing. It's in page 9.
Page 9, yeah.
So you go there yet, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so this is just statistically summarizing the issue. It shows you a couple of different measurements of your cost of money. The most important one there is the one called true interest cost, which includes the impact of all those of the issuance fees that we just went over. So your all-in cost of money is 4.17% based on today's market. I'm sorry, the one we should look at is the 4.30 is the all-in TIC. That includes the cost of your financing costs. So the financing costs add about 0.15% to your cost of money. As you can see, the issue doesn't extend out beyond 10 years. That's an average there. And then the total debt service over time on the new issue is $17.4 million of debt service.
As opposed to 18.2 that we're currently looking at, correct?
And there's another interesting little chart on the bottom of page 9 that I'll draw your attention to. And I realize it's small print, and when I was younger and doing these things, people would complain to me about the small print, and I never gave it much thought, and now I do. It really comes back to haunt you. But what I like to do is see how sensitive to changes in interest rates, your savings are. So this one, that 9,398, the last number on the page, every time rates go up or down by 0.01, or what we call basis point, or 0.01%, it costs or gains $9,300. So you can see it's kind of sensitive to it. If you take that $9,398 and divide it into your $800,000 of savings, that shows you how much rate movement you have before it all goes away.
The, solid waste.
Yeah, the total payment for this year would be $643,000.
Okay. And what would be left out after?
4 more years of that. This is the 3rd year of 7. It was set up over a 7-year period. This is year 3.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add, Ms. Weber?
I think that's it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to.
Thanks. Thank you very much for the presentation. I open now for question from guys. Anybody? Me first, and then both Mr. Hendricks. Anybody else, Mr.?
Thank you, Mr. Green. My question isn't actually on the issuance. My question is on the repayment of the solid waste loan, which I am 100% in favor of, and I'm very happy, Mr. Hartzell, that this was brought to us to try and get back on that payment schedule. But the one thing that I would like to bring up is, could we have the solicitor's office take a look at the ordinance, because we did go back and vote on a change to the payment schedule since we were taking 1 year off. And I'd like to know what we would need to do to reinstate the payment schedule under its correct course to be finished at the appropriate time. We might need, if we need to do another vote on that.
Perfectly fine, and that's a different ordinance. That's the one dealing with the repayment schedule. for the-
Yes, that's, yeah. So, but I appreciate it. I thank you, and all of our teams, for the work on this. Thank you very much, and I hope that we can get this out in a successful manner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. I'd like to open it to the public. Questions, Mr. Hirschman? Take your time. Take your time.
Thank you there, Mr. Grady. So these are all taxable bonds, not taxable. Interest rate is, what's the interest rate of non-taxable bonds right now?
The interest rate on non-taxable bonds of the same maturity would probably be what, Mark? 3% range? Yeah. And, 3% range. Because they're pension obligation bonds, we cannot use tax exempt financing here. We have to use taxable.
I understand, but what is interest rate of non-taxable right now?
It would, instead of being about 4.30, it would be approximately 3.30.
Because last time you were here, you brought up that you weren't gonna sell bonds for 4%, and I brought up the taxable bond, and you couldn't give us an interest rate at that time, but the taxable bonds were. So this is the actual interest rate as of today, 4.37.
If we sold them last Friday, yes, that would have
And
been.
it's based on par or this kind of bonds.
These are all par bonds.
None of them will be discounted.
I don't think we're looking at doing discount bonds, Mark. I don't know that there's a good for that. I think we're anticipating all par bonds. Would that change? I don't think it's likely that it would
In
change.
other words, it'll be also. My final question, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Grady, before you approve these, project team, have you looked at, if there's anybody from any law firms or advisors or that you could, underwriters council and pages from the city of Allentown, and any attorneys, banks, or underwriters that can do this in the Lehigh Valley or Allentown? I mean, if you look here, all these things are from out of town. I mean, is there nothing from the Lehigh Valley that we can do, or? Because I thought last time I was here, we brought this to your attention, you mentioned you might look into, see what we can do with Lehigh Valley for like Allentown for us.
Well, I mean, that's a good observation, Mr. Hirschman. But we can take into account, I mean, that's why we have Mr. Mr. Becker is here, and we hired him for that, remember? However, you may have somebody else that you mind.
Actually, I wanted to verify, I just talked with Mr. Quinn from Stiefel. They have, their offices in Easton and in Center Valley will be responsible for the sale of these bonds. So we will have a local presence that will be active in the bond sale.
Good.
It's difficult, that's him.
Well, they have local people, right? Same.
We're always looking for things to draw upon locals' talent as much as we can do. Our overall consideration is to try to get the lowest cost for whatever data that we're putting out there and bringing it before you. But we do aim as much as possible to bring local commitment into whatever we're doing. So that's definitely part of what we seek to do always.
But I'm sure as bond counsel, we always had bond counsel from Allentown, Carnegie Valley. Prior to, after the Siemens, why couldn't we continue that?
Was compassionate, I'm pretty sure. What was his name? Do you remember?
Everything is going out of town here, right? I mean, they were trying to.
Mr. Greedy, if I may.
Every city.
For many years, the city used King Spry, which was very much a local firm. But as you recall, the state passed a law saying that if you did work for the NIS, you couldn't do work for the city. And King Spry is continuing to do work for the NIS, so they are not eligible to do work for the city of Allentown. And I don't think there's a whole lot of local firms that, in the valley, that keep bond counsel on hand. So that may have necessitated the city to find competent counsel for us to look a little bit further abroad geographically. So that would be the reason, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Grace. I mean, I kind of agree with Minister Hirschman in the point that we should always try to find local talent to, to deal with us. In this case, we are with this company and, we've been with them for a couple of deals and.
Well, the controller said there could be some. The controller said there could be some, that means there are some. I mean, he used the word could be some, that means there are some.
Yeah. It's something that it's a good observation, I agree. It's something that we can take into account for the future.
And paying agent, I'm sure there could be local banks around here that could be a paying agent. And then while I'm on paying agent, Mr.
Is your time still moving?
I would bring into your attention years ago when I was city controller, we looked at these, paying agents and how much money still was in their possession that they couldn't pay for people that, when they issued the bonds, they were deceased, so they wouldn't have to pay them. And the banks were sitting on that money. And I'm trying to find out, I keep writing letters to, solicitors, and you guys, what's happening to this money that they're sitting on, that has not been dispersed because someone has passed away. So the bonds will be paid to the deceased or the estate. Are we looking into that?
Not sure. Mr. Hudson, you know,
I'm not sure what the issue is that we're
In
talking
other words,
about.
Mr. Hart, so if somebody's deceased, you don't pay them, they're dead.
You mean like a pension payment?
And I looked into this years ago, we got money because the Philadelphia Bank started about this, and there were millions and millions of dollars available.
that's a different issue. We can probably talk about that.
Well, up here, Mr.
Yeah.
Stifel is here, we maybe could look into that for us as well.
So you actually want him to look into it?
Well, on taxes next year, we're gonna have a tax increase next year.
Yeah, you got another assignment
If they're sitting on the money, I mean, they sat on it before, they had to disperse it. I have never seen anyone going after it again. In other words, if the person's deceased, you can't pay the guy.
Yeah.
The money's sitting in the banks. Yeah, paying agent can't pay the people.
Thank you, Mr. Hirschman.
So I
Appreciate it.
think we should look into that too.
Thank you. Mr. Hunziker, welcome back.
Thank you.
What do you have for
I
us?
couldn't wait to get back here.
Yeah, I can see.
I'm looking at this 2017 CAF report,
Mhm.
and I just have a question, because I noticed that 2004 was a 12.6 million balance outstanding last year. If I go down to 2007, you have a $28 million balance. Is there a reason why we didn't attack that one, or look at that?
Referring to the 2007 that has the rather inflated repayment schedule beginning in the 2020s?
Well, it shows 6.6% payable to, but what was your
It's-
evaluation of looking
Yeah,
at that
it's,
versus?
unfortunately, the 2007 bonds were issued as zero coupon bonds. So they don't pay any interest until 2022 in the future. And those types of bonds are all non-callable. So as much as we would like to be able to refund those at those rates, you can't, because you can't call them away from the investors.
Okay, so you almost answered, we're at the end of the rope here, we can't do this anymore. of our debt?
I mean, you
Unless
could-
the 15 one, the 2015 one maybe would be.
2015, yeah, the 2015 and 2017, I think, have call dates, but they're further
I'm
out.
just wondering how far we can go with this, because we've been doing this for years and years and years, and it isn't too good for the people in the future that have to pay for this, so.
But remember, we're not extending the debt, we're reducing the total debt service. So, you're taking advantage of lower rates to reduce debt service on outstanding obligations.
You gotta get paid anyway, you're just gonna pay more, actually, we're saving money by doing it now.
We save more money if we give it to them.
No, doesn't matter who you're giving to, but if we refinance it now, we save money.
Okay, crux of my question would be then, what would be the next one you would attack here? Then you must have looked at all these,
I look at them all the time.
Yeah.
And what we do is we look at them when there is, a couple things happen. When rates move significantly, we look at them. And we also look at them whenever there is a call date approaching, because that's when we can redeem the old bonds. And we look at them when there's a new project, because it makes sense sometimes to put refunding and new projects together like we did in the fall. That's what we do, and that's part of the contract I have with the city, is to monitor the outstanding debt for opportunities. But you're absolutely right, there's not a lot of more opportunities down the road.
Okay, the fall one we have to talk about, because I don't have any documentation on that, what you did in 2018 in the fall. And did you do that one, or you didn't do it, or what?
We did it. We're talking about 2006, right?
There was 3.5 million, a 3.5 million number. Where did, I don't have any documentation, where is that? I mean,
That is, we'll get that information to Mr. Hunsicker. That's what was distributed for the short-term bond that we put into the equipment fund and into the capital fund.
Where's the paperwork in that? That's what I want to see.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's illegal what they did, I just want to know the paperwork.
Okay.
We'll get the paperwork.
And what was the total cost of that one, just so I keep my head? What was it? Was it 3.5?
That was about $3.5 million.
That was exactly what you had in there, in the Madoff report.
Whatever that trend amount was showing there for November, December, that would have been the proceeds, correct?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunsicker.
Good evening, Clint Keller, 2726 First Street. Just like to find out what the interest rates on the payments are on the 2004 series. Because I noticed in this presentation and the presentation from back in September, the coupon that's due on October 1st, 2024 has a interest rate of 5.31%. And in the CAFRs over the last couple of years, I've noticed that the reported interest rate for the 2004 issue has varied between 5.25% as the maximum rate and 5.31% as the maximum rate. And in the 2016 and 2017 CAFRs, the interest rate reported on pages 77 and 78 respectively, interest rates were supposed to be between 4.870% and 5.250%. So is the maximum rate on the 2004 bond issue 5.250% or 5.31%?
It's at 5.20%.
It's 5.31%. There's one bond maturing in 2024 for $650,000, that's 5.31. But the bulk of the bonds and the bulk of the debt service cost are in term bonds that mature in 2029 at 5.2% and 2034 at 5.25%. Sometimes, I know what you're talking, I know what you're getting at, because sometimes when you read these CAFRs and the accountants change the way they write the note, and they don't they don't always get it right.
Okay.
Good question, thank you. Any other question from the public? If not, we move forward to thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
You had easier than last time, but thank you very much. Lou, we're gonna move forward.
I know you are. Finance committee report.
Yes, that's what we're gonna do now. So, we're gonna look at, what we call the, December 2nd report, okay? So, you have any good? I know that you were getting a 2.4 revenue source, better than before, but can you explain it to council?
I shall do so. I will concentrate your focus on pages 2 and 3 of December 2nd report. On page 2, when you get to the bottom of the year-to-date for 2018, you will see total general fund revenues at roughly $108.7 million. You go to the next page, on page 3, and you see total cash expended in the general fund for 2018 of $106.4 million. So it rounds off to about, right now, a $2.4 million excess of revenues over expenditures, which is helping our cash balance. We've definitely added that to our reserves. We're going to be very careful to continue building those reserves to improve our overall financial position. And there's many people in the city who deserve a lot of credit, both in terms of what happened with revenues and what happened in constraining expenditures, that this was really a team effort, and our departments really should be commended for being able to.
Yes, thank you. That's good news. My other questions that I had that I asked Mr. Hatch already, were in regards to the $8 million health risk management fund. That there's enough money there to pay for that. I think it's what, a little bit less than 3 million? Okay, so.
If you go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll speak to that. If you go over to page 11. When we noticed that the expenses were going over, we needed to make those expenses. I wanted to wrap up the entirety of the budget amendment in one swoop when we got it ready to go. And the statement that I had said then that I was holding firmly to was that we were going to have sufficient cash left in account 081 to be able to cover over that deficit, and so when the appropriation is approved for it, that we can take it entirely out of the risk management reserves and not touch the general fund. You will see, if I take a look at page 11 and I look at the 081 risk management fund, you will see that in September we had a balance of $4 million. And then you see very quickly in October how much of that disappeared. But at the end of December, after all the expenses for the year, we are still to the good in terms of cash in that fund in 6 digits. And so we are able, therefore, with the appropriation bill that you will be considering for final passage next week, we can say completely that we can draw upon the available funds simply in risk management for 2018 to be able to cover that cost.
Okay. Now that we're in that page, let me see. Now that we're in the same page, you can also see down on the non-pool bank account and the bank accounts there, and there's still the stabilization fund. If you remember, we invested some of that, about $3 million, and it's actually got a little bit more than $3 million now. So we do agree it's a wise thing to do. I know that so many people recommended that in the back, and we are in some money. I think it was 21,000 or something.
Yes, after the January statement, it's at $3,021,000 after the end of January, and we've been very careful in making sure that those two items, the part that is included with the investment firm and that is still in the the existing fund, are kept right next to each other so people can see the total dollar amount that we have committed, that the stabilization fund is not only stable, it's actually growing in size, and you can see the comparative sizes of what's both happening with the stabilization fund proper and with the investments that we've made, so you can keep track of how each of them are doing on a month-to-month basis. And I am very glad to do that, because this is an issue that requires a very clear, it's a very sensitive issue, and we want to be sure that we're transparent about exactly how the money is coming into that and where it's coming from.
I'm sorry, I moved ahead a little bit to January because it was right on the same page. But is there any comments, any questions on December 2nd report? We're gonna have one more regards to December, but I'm just saying to the dais, because we're gonna, after we finish that, I come back to you. After we finish December, January, so we can talk about both.
January, I've got nothing to have a report from January, okay?
You don't have a report for January?
It came out late this afternoon. Mr. Hunsaker just received a copy that I had on hand, and I will make sure we get that up on the website from the council website. And I do have an extra copy, if Mr. Hirschman wants to look at it right now, I can give him one, which is long. Or you got it?
But that was secretary.
This is January.
All right, thank you. I don't think that has to go, so, Ms. Moulton, thank you for saying it. You know what it is. So, let's go forward. On January, the January reports. The only thing I saw in January that I asked about was, which will be the same page, looking at the, everything is first month, so it's not much to look at, but looking at the golf fund is obviously lower now. Hopefully it will increase the spring comes, and we're gonna be in the black hopefully. And also I asked about Trenchler Park, we're doing okay there. And the general fund use is it'll be on $5.6 million. That's low.
I did want to raise that issue. If you go to, compare page 11 of the January to page 11 of the December 2. If you look in the December 2, in the very same place for where we were a year ago at the end of January, you'll see that the portion of money, the general fund outside of the stabilization fund, was sitting at about $2.2 million. In terms of cash. At the same time now, after January of 2019, that amount excess of the stabilization fund is at 5.7 million. So our cash position compared to the end of January a year ago is 3.5 million for better. That's the comparison I really wanted to show out of this.
Any further comments that you'd like to add? Any comments from the guys?
I have one question, Mr. Greedy, just for something I'm trying to get, and I apologize, Mr. Hartzell, for this, but when we're looking at any of the pay accounts, so we're page 3, just to take as an example the premium pay, so we're looking at
You in January, December?
January, I apologize. When we see it listed at year-to-date, it's 109. My question to you is that what has been issued in paid checks in the month of January, or is that what will be budgeted, I should say, in the month of January? So if a paycheck would be put out in February, but the money was spent in January.
That's actual cash. So in
So
that
that's what
instance-
was distributed in paychecks, so that would include December's overtime.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, Mr. Hirschman.
Thank you. I just heard Mr. Hartzell say, everything looked good, risk management. I look at the January report, it shows a deficit of $963. So in other words, everything is not looking really good, 13.
No, actually, I think there was I know which one. Yeah, there's actually, that one was an older copy of this. We took a look again and showing where the risk management fund was, and the copy that you have that shows it with a positive balance is the correct one. I had the earlier copy that Louisa had, and we were looking over that to make sure that, in fact, here, this is the right
That
one.
number's wrong then.
That number's wrong. This one's right.
Then you can have it back.
I will give this one back, yes.
Okay, Mr. Grady, and my next question is, you know, I presented a petition to City Council based on information I had in December, and Ms. Hartzell said that things look good, that revenue should exceed expenditures by $2 million, and hit the nail on the head. And based on that information, we have petitions where many senior citizens could not afford this tax, 21% tax increase. Based on what Mr. Hartzell just presented tonight again, but the mayor vetoed the budget, you guys tried to cut the budget, the 5 of you guys tried to cut the budget. You could reduce the real estate tax for many senior citizens in Allentown. In fact, I met one Saturday, and everyone has Social Security, puts their money away monthly to pay all their bills and their taxes, and what happened is at the end of December and January and January, they needed fuel. They had to borrow the money from the relatives. I mean, how many seniors do you think are in that boat? Is this one senior citizen came, we had to borrow money to have heat in your house because of what the city did with the 27% tax increase. And I'm sure they're gonna bring this out in the May election also, because they're out there telling people about what happened. And but I'm asking, what Mr. Hartzell just pointed out again, maybe council can consider and discuss it with the mayor. Give the people a credit this year yet for their taxes, and maybe we can reduce the 22% the tax increase, so some people have the money to meet their bills. I mean, I pity some people, mental elderly people who have pensions.
You know, you're preaching to the choir here. When you're
Well, you're part of the
right.
party, because, you're over here.
I think we are getting close to getting a new, early intervention person to look into that.
We have to
And
wait.
I'd rather wait and take, to take recommendation from that group we pay money to, before we diverge into changing the budget drastically.
Yeah, well, if Mr. Hartzell says we have extra $2 million, why wait? Help the people that you.
The only reason, quite frankly, I'm saying this is because, we thought we were okay at the end of the year, and then we find out a month or so ago that we had to come up with $3 million to pay for health benefits that we didn't pay before. So, because of that, I wanna make sure that everything is compensated. What was presented to us and what the budget really is, and then we can consider something that you just said. In regards to, if we can do that. I don't know if we can do that. I really don't know if it's legal to do it, so I have to find that out.
How could you not look at that, so there's money to buy fuel, so you keep the one?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. But I don't know if it's legal, quite frankly. Mr. Hunsaker.
1 minute, sir. I'm trying to track some money.
Mhm.
And the two in question is a 3.5 million. And I just want, and then this new one that's gonna come up, we're gonna sell it. Where are we gonna put that money in, Mr. Hartzell? I mean, what account is that gonna go in, so I can track it when that comes? So, when we got the 3.5, I only seen it in this report
Mhm.
after the fact, and I don't remember any designation of ordinance or something of the past. So, if I look for that 3.5 million, where is it gonna come into the city's revenue accounts?
Okay.
You know, or? 'cause I-
Mr. Hunsaker, go ahead.
Well, let me go back to the December report if I could, and go to page number 11. And actually, I will go to another page on that report first, which is page 2. Take a look down in revenue line 7110, near the bottom of page 2 of the December report. You can see at that point that we drew bond proceeds $3,541,000. In the subsequent month, we withdrew all but 6,000 of that because there was a small commitment that needed to remain in the general fund. So in December, that money was shifted out of the general fund, and I will show you on page 11 where it was shifted. On page 11, you will see under the pool cash, there was a significant increase in the equipment fund from November to December. That's where a large portion of that $3.5 million went. And another place where it would have gone to was in 001, the capital fund. You'll see a significant increase in the cash reserve of that particular fund as well. And those increases were due primarily to that transfer of the $3.5 million.
Okay.
So actually, those are all pooled accounts, right? So I don't see it in any, it's a pooled account. The equipment fund's in a pooled account.
It is, but we credit that money specifically for that purpose. And
Yeah, but how do I get to see that credit somehow? That's what I'm saying. I don't have paperwork for that.
Can you get that from Mr.?
we'll clarify that for
Yes,
him.
I mean,
I
you got,
mean, that's one of the, I mean, it's the top of the number, the big number, and there's, I'll get with him later on some of the others, but,
Yeah. just make sure you have.
it goes a little deeper in the documentation.
Mr. Hunter, I wanna make sure that we are transparent as possible, and I'm gonna.
That's what we're working on.
You don't have any,
I appreciate
You don't
this,
understand
that's
it?
a little bit so far, so.
if you know about finance, and if you don't understand it, a lot of people probably would. So,
I
I'm glad you
don't know anything
bring that
about
up.
financing.
All right. Unless there's any.
One other question, you have a committee meeting that you're gonna have with, evaluating your finances coming up, you're gonna have, you're setting together a committee?
Yes,
And when is that gonna take place?
we're not sure yet.
And did you pick who it is yet?
No, not yet.
Can we have an input with that or something, or once you pick them people,
Sure.
can the public,
We do it publicly.
I wanna see what you're gonna charge them to do specifically,
Okay,
okay?
sounds good.
As a matter of interest for us and myself, whoever.
Mhm. Let's you and I talk offline.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we're done, this meeting's adjourned, and, the next meeting, we'll let